Hello, future engineers. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're still new to my channel and you like what I'm doing, please don't forget to share my videos to your friends and to your friends' friends, to your younger brothers and sisters who would want to take up engineering in the future, and to your relatives. That's one way you can keep me going, inspired, and refreshed. Now, if you find my videos interesting and important to your studies, also please don't forget to subscribe. So in this video, we have Vitamath 81 challenge problem on proving. Uh, so we have to prove that the nth derivative with respect to x of the quantity sine to the fourth x plus cosine to the fourth x is equal to 4 to the quantity n minus 1 cosine of open quantity 4x plus n pi over 2 and closed quantity. So first, let's have the first derivative dy dx. So it is equal to, let's denote that as y. So dy dx is equal to 4 sine cube of x times cosine x, then plus, it is power formula 4 sine to the 4 minus 1, so 3 of x, then derivative of sine with respect to x cosine x. This is also by power formula 4 cosine cube of x, derivative of cosine, negative sine of x. So we note that negative 4 sine x cosine x is common. So if we factor that out, then we'll have negative 4 sine x cosine x times cosine square x, then minus uh, sine square x. So dy dx is negative 4 sine x cosine x times quantity cosine square x, then minus sine square x, because this is positive. So negative of negative is positive. We note from trigonometry that this is double angle formula cosine of 2x, while we can write this as negative 2 times quantity 2 sine x cosine x, negative 2 times 2 sine x cosine x, then cosine 2x. This 2 sine x cosine x is sine 2x. So we have negative 2 times sine 2x times cosine 2x. And again, the entire formula, double angle 2 sine 2x cosine 2x, is simply negative sine of 4x. So dy dx is negative sine of 4x. If we check, n is 1, 4 to the 1 minus 1 is 4 to the 0 or 1. So it's really 1 here. Then cosine of quantity 4x plus 1 pi over 2. So pi over 2. The expansion is cosine 4x cosine pi over 2. And cosine pi over 2 is 0. So the first term in the expansion is 0. Then the other expansion minus sine 4x sine of pi over 2. So minus sine 4x sine of pi over 2 is 1. So that would be negative sine of 4x. So that's why the result here is negative sine 4x, which shows that this is true for the first derivative. For the second derivative, we differentiate this. So it is equal to negative of cosine 4x times 4. Derivative of sine is cosine, so cosine of 4x, derivative 4x times 4. Simplifying, that's negative 4 cosine of 4x. And if you check again, n is 2, so 4 to the 2 minus 1 is 4. So that's the 4 there. Then cosine of quantity 4x plus 2 pi over 2 is pi. And the expansion cosine 4x cosine of pi, take note that cosine of pi is negative 1 times cosine of 4x, so negative cosine 4x times 4, so negative 4 cosine 4x, which checks. The other expansion, the other term is sine 4x sine of pi. Sine of pi is 0, so that's why the second term is 0. So this is really the second derivative, which checks that equation there. Third, we differentiate negative 4 cosine 4x. So that would be negative 4 times negative sine 4x times 4, and that would be positive 4 square sine 4x. And if you check with n is 3, 4 to the 3 minus 1 is 4 square, which is this. Then cosine of 4x, 3 pi over 2. The expansion cosine 4x, cosine of 3 pi over 2 or 270, that's 0. So the first term is 0, then minus sine 4x, sine 3 pi over 2. So minus sine 4x, negative sine 4x, sine of 3 pi over 2 is negative 1. So negative sine 4x and negative 1 is positive sine 4x. So that's why you have sine 4x here, which checks that equation. Then for the fourth derivative, we differentiate this. So we have y to the open quantity 4 close. So it is 4 squared, derivative of sine 4x is cosine 4x, derivative of 4x is 4. So that would be 4 cubed cosine of 4x. So if we check with n is 4, 4 to the 4 minus 1 is 4 cubed. Then cosine of 4x plus uh, 2 pi. Expansion cosine 4x, cosine 2 pi. Cosine 2 pi is 1, so cosine 4x plus, minus sine 4x, sine of 2 pi. Sine 2 pi is 0, so times sine 4x, that would be 0. So it's correct, 4 cubed cosine 4x. The fifth derivative of this is 4 cubed times quantity negative sine 4x times 4, so that would be negative 4 to the fourth sine 4x, which is the same as the first derivative except this because that's a coefficient, but for the trigonometric function it's the same. So 4 to the 5 minus 1 and negative sine 4x because this is the first 4 to the 0, so that's why it's 0. So it repeats here. So we then conclude that the sixth derivative of y with respect to x is of this form, 4 to the 5, negative 4 to the 5, then cosine 4x. Let's check the derivative. So sixth derivative of y with respect to x is negative 4 to the 4th. Derivative of sine is cosine 4x times 4, so that's why it's negative 4 to the 5 cosine 4x as expected. Because this is the second derivative and it will be repeated after 4 cycles and except the coefficient. So negative 4 to the 4th, negative 4 to the 5, the sixth derivative, cosine of 4x. If you check it here, it's also correct. Then let's generalize. We have the nth derivative of y with respect to x is in general 4 to the n minus 1, then cosine of quantity 4x plus n pi over 2 as checked by these first 6 derivatives. So this is true. So let's have the ninth derivative. So this is the fifth. So negative 4 to the 9 minus 1. So 8 sine of 4x, which checks here. Negative 4 to the 9 minus 1 is 4 to the 8 positive, then cosine of 4x, this is 9 pi over 2, and cosine of 9 pi over 2 is 0. So cosine 4x times 0 is 0, minus sine 4x, then sine of 9 pi over 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 times sine 4x is negative sine 4x times 4 to the 8. So that's why you have negative 4 to the 8 sine 4x. Then the 10th derivative. So this is the detailed expansion. So this is 0 and this is negative 1. This is positive 1 rather. So negative sine 4x times 1 is negative sine 4x times 4 to the 8. So it's negative 4 to the 8 sine 4x. Then the 10th derivative is 6th derivative negative 4 to the 9 cosine 4x. So by expansion, 4 to the 10 minus 1 using this results right side, cosine 4x cosine 10 pi over 2 minus sine 4x sine of 10 pi over 2, or 5 pi. Sine of 5 pi is 0 while cosine of 5 pi is negative 1. So that's 0, therefore cosine 4x times negative 1, negative cosine 4x. So negative 4 to the 9 cosine 4x. That's the result, which is the same true as that. So we conclude therefore that the nth derivative of y with respect to x is really this expression 4 to the 4 to the n minus 1 cosine of quantity 4x plus n pi over 2. So that's it for this video.